The last word in podcasting news. This is the Pod News Weekly Review with James Cridland and Sam Sethi.
I'm James Cridland, the editor of Pod News.
And I'm Sam Sethi, the CEO of True Fans.
We always keep innovating, especially when customers ask us for features. That's mostly what's happening now.
Barry from Podhome on the AI-powered podcast host.
It will find the best moments in the episode and it will guide you through them.
Kevin Smith from Snipd on the AI-powered podcast app. And Apple Podcasts launches video for everyone. This podcast is sponsored by Buzzsprout with the tools, support and community to ensure you keep podcasting. Start podcasting, keep podcasting with Buzzsprout.com.
From your daily newsletter, the Pod News Weekly Review.
James, let's start off. Hey, look, it's not an Apple story for the first story of the week, but it might be in there somewhere. Don't leave them out, you know. But Spotify, let's start with them then.
I'm surprised that Apple isn't the number one story. I'll tell you that.
Okay.
But yes. Anyway, go on then. Spotify.
Sack the producer,
Mr. Producer.
Spotify. Actually, Carmen from Bloomberg is reporting that Spotify's laid 3% of its podcast team off. That's about 15 people. What are they doing over there?
Well, who knows what they're doing over there, because Spotify won't tell us. But it does look as if there are cuts in The Ringer, cuts in Spotify Studios. They may be the same thing these days. I really don't know. There's a special projects lead, whatever that does, and there's a writer who we know has gone. There's a show which has also been cancelled as well called New York, New York. I am hearing all kinds of stories about Spotify changes.
Spill the tea. Go on, spill it.
And every time I go to Spotify and I say, oh, okay, well, this is what I'm hearing, and they just reply and say, that's very much not true. There was another story that I heard and I asked for comment on that, and they gave a comment that was basically, we have nothing to say at this time.
But they didn't say it wasn't true.
No, so you know, so there are things going on at Spotify, and I'm not quite sure what those things are, to be honest. My suspicion is that there's sort of other things going on at Spotify. Maybe quite a lot of big changes in terms of how video works, perhaps in the future. I mean, certainly if they're looking at the standard way of doing video, then there's probably going to have to be quite some change, given that Apple has totally upended the fruit cart or whatever it is that they're updating. You know what I mean? So I'm just curious as to what
apples, oranges.
Yes, exactly.
You add your fruit, whatever you like. Yes.
Exactly. So I'm just sort of curious in terms of all of that. But it's interesting times at Spotify. They've been launching a few other things, haven't they?
They have. So one of the things they've launched is a new tool for testing AI slop, or to stop AI slop. They're doing it for music first. So they're allowing you to put in your artist profile something called artist profile protection, which basically says, is this your track? And the artist has to go yes or no, basically. I wonder whether they'll extend that to podcasting, I suppose.
Well, yes, that would certainly be a thing. That would certainly be a thing. No, very interesting. They've also Apple Music, if we're talking about music services, Apple Music has also launched a integration with a concert provider. I think it's Ticketmaster.
It is indeed.
Yeah, so you can instantly buy tickets through there as well. So again, more of these integrations coming, which is interesting.
Now, okay. Apple launched iOS 26.4. With it came the new video experience. Have you got it?
Yes, I do. I have the brand new iOS 26.4. I mean, I've been running the developer beta for a while. They snuck out a couple more podcast hosting companies who are supporting HLS video: Podspace, Riverside, Osha, and First Story. I've heard of at least 2 of those, and I think that's really interesting, isn't it? That we're now at a stage where we are welcoming Podspace, which is a small company based in the Nordic countries. And I'll be frank with you, I do not know who First Story are. So we're welcoming those types of companies into Apple Podcasts video. What we're not seeing is people like Spotify's Megaphone. Buzzsprout aren't there yet, both of whom I'm sure are very keen to get in. So it's interesting times. It's interesting times. And I wonder, as people upgrade to the new version of iOS 26.4, whether or not normal listeners will see the type of shows that they are expecting. So probably no Joe Rogan. Definitely no Joe Rogan for now. No titles from The Ringer, but plenty more because Spotify's Megaphone isn't part of it. Apple saying that more content will roll out throughout the year because, of course, they would. But I think it's going to be very interesting to watch and see what normies think about this. There aren't too many shows available in video right now.
Yeah, but it's the old adage, isn't it? Build it and they will come. Well, in this case, build it and they might not come, right?
Well, yes. I mean, or indeed, build it in secret until a couple of months ago, and then ask people to come. That's the other sort of side of it.
Yeah.
But apparently, 48 shows are in the Apple Podcasts directory now with video. The majority of those with Acast. So Acast appears to have done all of its tech. Art19 have 10 of those. And then there's 1 or 2 for companies like Omni, Transistor, and so on. So, I think that probably tells you that not everybody is up to speed in terms of video in Apple Podcasts.
Well, I think if you're companies like Buzzsprout, you've now got to get your HLS story in place. So now you've got to decide how you're going to re-encode all the video. Then you've got to look at, actually, is there demand from your customer base to get into Apple Podcasts? Because, again, a lot of people, we've always said that, the long tail's probably not going to be involved in this at all. I mean, most podcasters don't want to do video.
Yeah.
And most of the big 10, as you said, Joe Rogan's, Call Her Daddy, might not do it. At least not to begin with.
Yes.
John Spurluck, friend of the show, has also given us a hat tip. He's said that Apple have updated the web app, but they haven't updated the Mac OS on the desktop, and they haven't updated the TV OS either.
Oh, that's interesting. Yes, I know that Apple TV does not have video podcasts, which makes very little sense. But yes, you would expect that there would be access to it on the macOS app. But if he's saying that it's not there, to be honest, I've not actually had a look at that. But that's interesting. But of course, that does mean that if you have Apple Podcasts installed as a PWA on Android, that means that you will see video, which is going to be curious.
Given that the Worldwide Developer Conference was just announced, it's going to be on June the 8th to June the 12th. You assume they're going to announce something to do with the new Apple TV being upgraded to support this. What else do you think might be there, James?
Yes, we've been wanting a new Apple TV for some time. Well,
that's just you personally, but yeah.
Yeah. I would assume that it's when we finally see the foldable iPhone thing. There's been a number of stories recently about Apple Podcasts really changing how the iPhone is working and changing the design of all of that. I mean, I think that they've basically just changed the design, so I'm not so sure about that, but certainly adding a foldable phone seems to make sense. The new Siri seems to make sense in there as well. I'm not sure necessarily that we will see too much more other than Siri actually being intelligent, and the foldable
artificially
iPhone,
intelligent. Yes.
Yes. Well, yes, indeed. But yeah, interesting times for Apple. It is of note that when you are told to upgrade, then Apple Podcasts with video is not one of the reasons. So the screen that comes on talks about other things. I'm not sure necessarily that Apple will be really shouting about Apple Podcasts with video until they've got enough content in there to actually make it worthwhile. I also heard another interesting thing. You can probably tell that I'm not normally at home. I'm in Riga in Latvia this fine morning, and I heard another interesting thing from the conference that I've been at of somebody saying that Apple Podcasts is not. It's still very popular, but it's not getting new listeners. So the new listeners are going to YouTube. The new listeners are going to Spotify. Apple Podcasts is still very popular because of habit, because people have used it in the past, and those people continue to use it. But it's not replenishing its audience with newer users. And I thought that was a really interesting way of thinking about it, and there might be a bit of truth there. That actually, people who've grown up with podcasting are using Apple Podcasts, but people who haven't have never gone into the Apple Podcasts app.
Well, I had a similar conversation with a friend in the industry who was talking about gateway drugs, in effect, YouTube Kids, bringing people into the YouTube environment, and Spotify targeting for music. You talked about your own daughter who's a teenager, or is about to be a teenager. All of her friends are on Spotify, therefore the cool thing to be is on Spotify. And I always think Apple Music is just something I never use. I don't go to it. All that Apple One, the radio station, I never listen to it. And also, just because they're all disparate parts with Apple, as opposed to an integrated solution, I wonder whether that's a trick they're missing.
Yeah, well, we will find out. I mean, arguably they would say, no, it's all part of one solution. It's called the iPhone. And in fact, Apple wouldn't say that because you don't put the word "the" in front of iPhone. So they would say it's all part of iPhone. And there may be something to be said for that. But yes, I mean, it's going to be very odd on the Apple TV for you to be going into the Apple Podcasts app to watch podcasts in there, but then going into the Netflix app to watch podcasts in there. I mean, you would kind of expect podcasts on the Apple TV to be in Apple TV. So I don't know. But anyway, all fascinating things to have a look.
Moving on then, James. Goalhanger, the big UK production company that's going gangbusters, has released something called the Accelerator, which is aimed at content creators. It's a fund. Oh, goody. What have they done?
I always look at these things and, I don't want to be rude about Goalhanger, although that company has changed very much in the last 6 months from being
They've changed.
From being a very, polite, hungry company to a company with a bit of an attitude. So I'm not 100% over the moon with what Goalhanger are doing anyway. These sorts of things, to me, it's their content creator fund. It's called the Accelerator. They will support high potential digital creators. They will give them up to £10,000 in content investment, which is around.
So not money. That's the critical part.
Yes, I hadn't even spotted that. Yes, £10,000 worth of
exactly.
Stuff.
Production and experimentation.
Yes, well, I hadn't even noticed that because I was there thinking, well, this is just a cheap way of getting more people into the Goalhanger platform,
now.
But it's cheaper now because it's not even real money.
Yes.
I mean, it does seem a relatively transparent way of essentially looking for pitches for additional content and doing it in a way where you don't have to work too hard because people come to you. It's not. It's a sort of lazy way of growing your network, I suppose. But I mean, it looks all fun. The folks at Goalhanger know what they're doing. You certainly can't argue with that. I mean, each creator will receive up to £10,000 in content investment to elevate production standards. I don't know if you've listened to any Goalhanger shows recently, but they're all filmed for TV. They sound pretty bad. They've lost most of the audio-specific production that Goalhanger shows have. So I'm not even sure that I would take information from Goalhanger in terms of how to make a good show, to be honest with you. But maybe I'm just being a bit grumpy. I'm still enjoying their shows. The rest of the entertainment is very good when Marina can get a word in edgeways. The rest of his politics is very good when Rory can get a word in edgeways. So I think it's all fine.
Shh, don't mention the war. It's too soon for Alistair Campbell. Too soon.
Too soon.
If you want to find out more, of course, you can go to goalhanger.com/the Accelerator. And again, look, on playing devil's advocate, the other side of the fence, they're trying to encourage young people to come into the environment and come into the industry, and maybe this is their way of doing it. So, look, good luck with it. It's another initiative that we should really applaud, whatever the outcome
I think so. I would just point out that there is an Apply Now button on their website. And next to that Apply Now button is a big thing saying terms and conditions. By applying, you agree to the Accelerator terms and conditions. I bet you do. Those will be interesting to read. So yes, maybe there's a thing there.
Moving on, James, Overcast, they are bringing transcripts, it seems, to Overcast, but not just one or two. They're bringing it for everybody, and even better, it will be free for everybody, says Marco Arment.
Yes, I think it looks very good. It doesn't yet use creator-produced transcripts, so it's not yet using the careful one, for example, that I do on the Pod News Daily, where I do go through and change people's spelling to make sure that everything's correct. It's not yet using that. Apparently that is coming, though, which is good news. My understanding is that the transcripts are mostly being done by a rack of Mac Minis that...
yes, I thought that story was fascinating.
Yeah, that Marco Arment has bought. So that's a story that hasn't got into Pod News yet. But I think that's a fascinating thing. I'd love to learn a little bit more about that. But absolutely rightly, he turned around and he said, this is an accessibility feature, and nobody should ever be charging for accessibility features. And he's absolutely correct. So hurrah for him. Overcast is a pretty big deal because it is... in many cases, the number 3 or the number 4 podcast app, it was always bigger than things like Google Podcasts. So for Overcast to be getting transcripts is, I think, a pretty big deal.
I'm not sure. I agree with him about the accessibility part, but when you start to add things like timed links and other feature and function on top of the transcript, then is that accessibility or is that feature and function?
No, I think that is feature and function, but I think certainly accessibility, adding transcripts, I think that makes perfect sense to keep that free, and it's exactly the right sort of thing.
So are we setting the bar now for all apps to have to provide transcripts?
I mean, I would hope so. That, to me, would be the sensible opportunity, and arguably the apps that don't provide transcripts are operating outside of the law. Now, you can argue that you can get transcripts from iOS and from Android, so you can actually do that on a entire device level. So they may be able to, fall back to that and say, oh, well, that's really how that works. But I do think that transcripts are something that everybody should have in there. Now, the question is really transcripts for everything, as Marco is doing, or transcripts for any podcast which is providing them, as we do. So I don't know what the answer to that is, but I would personally like to see as many transcripts as possible.
Okay, I'm going to just persist on this for a second. Should it be the host that provides the transcript or the app? Because let me just play devil's advocate for a second. Is it the case, like with Buzzsprout, our sponsors, where we go in and they have an AI capability that gives us the transcript, speaker labels, and again, chapter titles, or should it be the app, that then says, no, there isn't a transcript with this podcast, we will provide it? Because Adam and Dave on the Podcasting 2.0 show this week were like, well, hang on a minute. Why are you providing something? Why are you changing my podcast that I haven't requested?
I think, you can look at that both sides, and respecting the creator is what any good podcast app should do. But covering for a creator that can't be bothered to provide accessibility is another side of looking at that. So I think from my point of view, it's really easy. If you don't want people to be making automated transcripts for you, then make your own transcript. That's the bottom line. If you are, and this is why I get annoyed at Spotify who don't use the creator-produced transcripts. Frankly, annoyed at Overcast right now who aren't using creator-produced transcripts and just making their own. I think that that's bad, but I think as long as they are taking a creator-produced transcript, if one exists, and then showing that, I think that that's absolutely fine. If you as a podcaster can't be bothered to make a transcript, then on your own head be it. And ideally, the app should be making a transcript or not. But I do think, at the end of the day, transcripts should be available. Ideally, the podcaster should be making those. And if the podcaster isn't making those, it's open season if you as an app want to make a transcript. As long as it's in the control of the podcaster, I think that that's fine.
Okay. Let's move on, James. Now, one of the apps I do like a lot is an app called Snipd. It's out of Switzerland. The co-founder and CEO is a guy called Kevin Smith, a seasoned AI person. He's done 10 plus years of AI, and he's a very smart man, by the way. He came out of Swiss banking, where he was involved heavily in creating trading systems. So now, a few weeks ago, you and I were talking about the use of AI within hosts, and I said I would love to, for my own company, True Fans, create an AI agent called Kevin and Kelly, and that's my goal. But I did mention that Snipd had been working on AI interfaces for their app for a number of years. Now, last year we interviewed Kevin, and he was talking about the ability to tap your headphones when you found an interesting part of the audio you were listening to, and it would create a clip using AI. Well, this week they've extended their AI. They've now added a new feature which allows you to chat with any podcast you've listened to. You can automatically, again, remember certain parts of the podcast. They've created something called AI DJ. I'm sure you're very excited, James, to be hearing this. But the thing about the AI DJ, it does allow you to speak to the podcast, as I said, pause, play, and seek content within your own player. Now, I was very excited about this because, again, as I said, for my own app, this is a goal that I'm trying to achieve. So I thought I'd reach out to Kevin Smith, and I started off by asking him, remind me, what is Snipd?
Yeah, Snipd is an AI-powered podcast app for anyone who listens to a lot of knowledge podcasts. So the typical Diary of a CEO listener, Modern Wisdom, Huberman Lab would be some of the classics, I would say. And the feature that we're most known for, also where our name comes from, is the so-called snipping. What that allows you to do is whenever you hear an amazing moment, some insight that you want to remember or maybe share with someone, you can just tap your headphones and our AI will save the moment that you just heard and summarize the insight for you. And this results in what we call a snip. And this snip now lives in your knowledge library. You can automatically sync it to your Notes app. So if you use Notion or Obsidian or an app like Readwise, and of course you can share it with a friend or your team at work. Yeah, this is really where we started. From there, we've over the years added more and more AI features, always focused on the listener. How can we enrich the experience of the listener? How can we help them get more out of their listening? And always in mind with this focus of people who listen to knowledge-rich podcasts. Like we actually see podcasts as one of the largest knowledge libraries in the world. And we still think, even though podcasts are exploding, we still think it's so heavily underutilized.
Now, you've come out with a new update to Snip. Tell me more. What have you announced?
Yes. So just yesterday, we launched the first version of our AI DJ, as we call it. Before I tell you what it is, I'd love to start from where this internally started from. So we basically have two starting points. And I think, you're one of the people who actually also knows a lot about this. AI agents are taking over the world. And we actually think there's a lot of value that can be created for podcast listeners by using AI. But it's also at the same time so easy to get lost in all of these possibilities and like to forget what does the listener actually want to do and be much more guided in, oh, this technology is so cool. Look what I can do here. Look what I can do there. And forgetting like, okay, what's actually the problems that users have. So for our first version of this AI DJ, we really wanted to nail down one very particular pain point for users and bring this out as the first version. So what we ended up now solving is, I don't know about you, but for me, like, obviously I love podcasts, but I just can't keep up anymore. There's just so much amazing content out there. I have an episode queue of more than 400 episodes deep, and I just know I will never get around to listening to these. And every single one is an episode I manually selected. I saw it, I thought, this is amazing, I want to listen to this. So I can't keep up. And there's almost two categories of podcasts. There's like the podcasts that I 100% will listen to or listen to the entire thing. And then there's the other episodes where I am actually interested in it, but maybe I'm not yet so familiar with the show. I don't know the guest yet. Maybe it's a bit like a topic that's a little bit on the side. For example, in our announcement yesterday, I used an example about longevity on the Diary of a CEO podcast. Sounds super interesting to me. But given that I have these 400 and odd other episodes, I just know I will now queue this up and I will not get around to listening to it. So what we released yesterday is hopefully the solution to this problem.
Okay, tell me more.
So what the AI DJ does is when you're listening to an episode, you can activate the AI DJ. What it will do for you, it will find the best moments in the episode and it will guide you through them. So that way you can get the best moments in 1/4 of the time and have the AI DJ help you maintain the context of what's going on when you jump from one moment to the next moment. And with this, basically, I can listen to 4 times as many episodes. And in particular, all of these episodes where I was a bit, it's not the one that I'm 100% going to listen to, definitely, but I still want to experience a bit of it. And this is basically it in a nutshell.
Okay, I've got several questions there because in an episode that's long form, let's take the Diary of a CEO, as you mentioned, you're using your AI DJ to find the best bits. How does it know what the best bits are?
Yeah. So I can tell you 2 things here, like what we're doing today and what we have planned for the future, because I think this is one of the areas that are super exciting to work on. So today, how it works, it's really the AI having access to the entire episode and really guided by what are the core moments given the overall topic. As you know, in a typical episode, they drift off into some anecdotes from private life or some other topics on the side. The Diary of a CEO always at the end of a show has this question that was prepared by the previous guest without knowing who the next guest is. So all of these sort of deviate from the overall topic of like the longevity, the core message. So it really tries to stick to the core message and pick out the moments that you need to know to understand the storyline of the core message and then guides you through these moments.
Okay. So is it 5 or 6 different elements of the single podcast? Because James and I had a review of a product called PodShrink a couple of weeks back, and PodShrink took the whole 2 hours of Pod News Weekly Review and a bit like Notebook LM, it shrunk it down to a 1-minute synopsis of the whole episode. So what I'm trying to understand is the Snipd DJ shrinking the episode and then regurgitating back. So, hey, by the way, Sam, you want to listen to this episode because it's so cool and there's the bits that you want to listen to. Or is it skipping to the sections of the individual parts of the podcast and saying, this bit's really interesting, now listen. Now let me take you to another bit. Now let me take you to other bit. Which way is it doing it?
It's the latter. So basically the way to think about it, so we're not taking any content from anyone. The only thing that this AI DJ actually does is we've given the AI DJ control of your player. So the AI DJ can do 4 things. It can hit the play button, the pause button, the seeking, and it can talk to you. And those are the only things that it does. So we're not taking content, we're not summarizing content. The AI DJ is only controlling the player to jump to those moments. And with the speaking to you, it's not about giving you a summary. It's just to help you follow along. Because if you skip a couple of minutes, it's very easy to lose context. Remember, people are not watching, at least in our app, we're audio first. It's so easy to lose context. And then suddenly there's a new voice that comes on and it's like, oh, who's this now? What are they talking about? So it's more, the AI DJ acts like a moderator in this moment. And maybe one more comment here, the whole topic of summaries. One thing that is 100% clear to me is that summaries cannot replace the original podcast episode. And this is independent of whether the summary is made by AI or by humans. It's just in the nature of it. You just lose so much of what makes the podcast special. So summaries have their place. I think they're amazing to help you choose what to listen to. I think a lot of podcasters already do that themselves in the show notes to give like, hey, here are like a couple of the key takeaways that you're going to learn about in this episode. But you're just not going to replace listening to the real voices and the real person telling their own story.
But one of the things you talked about, the original version of Snip was tapping your headphone to create a snip. Can the AI DJ now do that for me? So can I say while I'm listening, hey DJ, just take a clip from here?
You can still do that. The way that you would do that is by tapping your headphone, not by speaking to it.
I just wondered whether the DJ now had a control mechanism, because one of the things I really would like an AI assistant to do when I'm co-listening, let's call it that, is, oh, you mentioned the word regurgitated. I don't know what that means. Click. DJ, what's regurgitated mean? Oh, it means this, Sam. Oh, lovely. Move on, right? Blah, blah, blah. So if I'm listening to a podcast that's got some very, let's say, terms that I'm not aware of, or a concept or knowledge that I just want to understand before I move forward with the podcast, I would love the assistant, the co-listening AI, to be able to pause the audio, tell me what it is, and then let me move on. Or just, I get to a point, oh yeah, okay, take a clip from here, please. Save that for me later, right? I don't want to be touching my ears or doing something, because again, that opens up the possibility that I'm in the car listening and I don't have my headphones in and I just want to just have a voice interface in my car to say, take a clip here. So that's why I was just wondering where you're going with it.
Yeah. So you mentioned a couple of really interesting examples. Some of them we actually already have. So you mentioned the car. So you're actually already able to take a snip in the car, but you just tap the button on your steering wheel instead of your headphones. Okay. So it's actually linked to the skip back button that almost all modern cars now have on the steering wheel. Another aspect that I wanted to mention is we do actually have something that currently we're not calling AI DJ, but we're calling auto snipping, where you can let the AI choose to take notes for you automatically. This is one of these features that either you love it or you hate it. So our users are like there's really like a 50-50 split on that feature. But basically, if you do not want to be actively choosing, oh, this is the moment that I want to save, and just want to make sure that you have at the end of an episode, like the most important insights taken as notes, you can turn that on. Now, the voice interface. Now, that is something that's super interesting. And I think that brings us to like, where do we see the AI DJ heading into the future?
Yeah, where is it going?
So one way how to look at the revolution that's happened with AI is that we've gained the ability to talk to machines. And this opens up the possibility of all of these apps that we're using, all of the entertainment or media apps, that so far it's mainly been a one-way communication stream. You know, I'm on YouTube and YouTube pushes stuff to me. And in the other direction, you only get very little information back. YouTube gets some click data, like where I hover on a bit longer, and the same for Spotify, the same for us, the same for true fans. Now, you can actually have two-way communication between the user and the application. And you can start to build recommendation experiences that are not just based on some proxy metric like click data or the whole optimizing for time on site that was made famous by Facebook. But you can actually let the user communicate what is important to them. So this is something that I'm in general very excited about, not just in podcasts, but I think it's a mechanism that as long as media platforms implement this, and we want to do this for Snip, it actually gives a lot of power back to the user for them to decide what their experience should be like, and basically having an algorithm that works for them instead of an algorithm that only works for the platform to optimize some, I don't know, how can I show more ads? So this was a little bit of a meta level, but this is basically the meta level on top of AI DJ, how I think about it. So what I want AI DJ to become is your personalized, customizable AI agent that finds and curates the best content for you. And you decide how you want to have that, what content is important to you, what not, and also how you want to listen to that. You, for example, mentioned, hey, I would love to jump in and ask a question. That should be possible for you to do. Other use cases that we heard from users is some say, hey, every time there's a big claim being made, I would love to have some kind of fact checking because, it's so easy to listen to these podcasts and everything sounds so credible. And then afterwards you find out, well, actually, there was nothing behind that claim. Another thing that someone told me, one of our users, is he would love to hear opposing views. Something comes out, a new topic. For me, the example that I always use here is universal basic income. There are so many different takes on this, especially now in the context of AI. And I'd love to hear a different side of this story. So if this comes up, can you please, my AI DJ, can you please go out there and find maybe someone who, sees this in the other direction? So all of these are different ways of consuming the best spoken audio content, but it's up to you. These are now just examples that I've heard. I don't want to put this on you that you have to do it like that. But how I see the future is you should be able to choose. If that is how you want to consume it, then tell your AI DJ and it will prepare the experience for you in that way.
Look, I've always said podcasting is predominantly an audio medium and we have a text-based interface to it. Let me type out a comment. Let me search using my keyboard for whatever it may be. And why don't we have a voice-based interface into our favorite podcast apps? As we say, most people are on a train or maybe they're going to work in the car or walking the dog. The phone's in the pocket. They don't want to keep getting it out. So I think voice interfaces are the way forward. I've got two quick questions for you. First of all, what's your background in AI? Where did you get all your AI street cred from?
So I started with AI now more than 10 years ago. So the backstory is actually that I studied quant finance. Basically, I studied mathematics and economics, a lot of working with data, a lot of working with numerical programming to basically come up with all of these mathematical models to do quantitative trading or to analyze risk in the stock market, asset pricing, derivatives pricing, all of these kind of things. And it was just at the end of my studies, I was actually already working for the biggest bank here in Switzerland. A friend of mine took this course called machine learning, and he comes to me and says, oh, Kevin, you really have to take this class. Like, you will absolutely love it. And I remember my first thought was like, what kind of weird name is that? Machine learning? Like, what is that? That doesn't sound like anything I'd be interested in. But I had a look at the slides and within a weekend, I was in love, you could say. I'm not kidding. It had all of the great things that I loved about what I was studying with quant finance, like all of this, the mathematical part of it, the deciphering data into something useful. And it didn't have the stuff that I was less interested in, like the whole banking aspect of it. And so long story short, I ended up quitting my job at the big bank such that I could do machine learning 24/7. And I ended up joining an early stage startup here in Zurich where I built up the AI team over 5 years. And that startup got acquired at some point. And after 5 years, I also then decided to go in a new direction and I started Snip.
Amazing. Kevin, congratulations on the launch of DJ. If I wanted to find out more about Snipd and I want to find more about AI DJ, where do I go?
So the best is to open up your phone, go to the App Store or Play Store and type in Snipd. It's spelled SNIPD. And you will find our app, download our app and have fun.
Great. And will we see you in London for the podcast show?
Definitely. Tickets are booked. Flights not yet. Need to do that. No, I will definitely be there. We don't have a stand or anything, but I will be there. If you want to hit me up, contact me on LinkedIn or on X. So hit me up. I will be there. Always happy to talk to other people in the podcast industry.
Amazing. Kevin, thanks so much. See you soon, mate.
Thank you. Thank you, Sam. See you soon.
Kevin Smith from Snipd talking about AI within the podcast app. I think we should have more AI, Sam.
You don't mean that, James. I know you well. Well, I did think that there's some interesting things going on. And one of those interesting things is going on at Podhome. Barry Lubrechts, who is based in Holland, started, last year, adding some AI smarts to the Podhome platform. And he's now starting to add more and more using things like Claude and Claude Pro and various other tools. They did have before integrations through webhooks and Zapier integration, but now they've taken it one step further and you can now use Podhome AI to generate transcripts, chapters, clips. And also, I thought I'd find out what else he's been doing with it. So I asked Barry, remind me again, tell me what is Podhome?
So Podhome is a podcast hosting platform. It's now about 3 years old. We're very much on the podcasting 2.0 features. So we do all sorts of things like live podcasting, chapters, transcripts. We have a little Podhome AI helper that helps you to create all those things, including titles, descriptions. It does it all automatically. And one of our big points is that you can do unlimited shows and episodes and all of that for a very reasonable price, at least we think. And so we always keep innovating, especially when customers ask us for features. That's mostly what's happening now. People want to automate things, for instance. So we build lots of stuff for that. So for instance, for automation, what we started building was an API that is like an endpoint that people can call. They have a key, it's all secure and such. And then you can use that within your own programs. So you can program against it, and then you can get your episodes, create new episodes, create a show, get your analytics even, all sorts of stuff that you can do with that. Basically, almost anything that you can do through the Podhome UI. So if you go to the actual app on your browser, you can also do through the API. And customers are building quite amazing things with that. For instance, one of our users has a website where he says, if you donate this amount, then we publish the next episode earlier automatically, for instance, which you can do with the API. That's very cool. But that's obviously advanced, right? You need to program against it and actually make something yourself. We also have more, let's say, low-code options. So if you're using Zapier or a program like that, that is basically a, when this happens, then I want that to happen kind of workflow. We have a plugin for that also uses that API in the background. And there you can say, well, for instance, when a new episode publishes of my show, because you can schedule those, then I want to do XYZ, like put a post on social media, on Instagram, for instance, with the episode title, description, and all that type of metadata that you get from the Zapier integration. And there are more things like that, including create an episode. For instance, when I have a new file in my Dropbox, that is an MP3 file, automatically create a new episode for me, and then do a whole workflow with that, for instance, which makes it super easy to just click together a workflow to automate your podcasting thing. And now that type of stuff is already pretty exciting. But then nowadays, I don't know about you, but I'm talking to my AI all day to just make it do stuff, to code, for instance, to do whatever. I don't even Google anymore. I just ask my AI, which might not be the best thing. But that's the reality where I find myself in, just talking to AIs all day. And so as I'm in that interface, like in ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, what have you, I thought, wouldn't it be cool if we can also just now say, hey, create a new episode in Podhome, upload to this file that I have here or there or wherever, and publish it and do all the things that I want to do with it. And so we enabled that, which turns out is pretty easy to make, actually, with AI as well. So what that is an MCP server, Model Context Protocol. That is kind of how AIs talk to APIs, so to other platforms, like my platform, or for instance, to TrueFans. And then it understands what it can do with that. So an MCP server is basically a layer around the API that we built, and that exposes it so that AIs can talk to it. So we enabled that. It's pretty easy to just set that up in, for instance, your Claude. And then you can just say to Claude, hey, how many downloads did I get today, for instance, for show XYZ? And then it shows me. And then you can ask follow-up questions like drill down, which countries, which apps, what was it the last 30 days? How does it compare to this show, blah, blah. And, you know, with the power of those AIs and that those now have access to Podhome, you know, that creates this very interesting use cases. And basically, you don't have to leave your AI anymore. You can just say, all right, cool, now create this episode with this thing and this artwork and this description, or, you know what, create a description for me. Listen to the episode and make it for me. And so now you can just do that. We just enabled that, and that is included, like always, with all the other options as well in your regular subscription. And so users are now testing it. It seems to be working well. We will be expanding it where needed, changing it where needed. And you can use it with almost all your favorite AIs. Not everybody works perfectly with MCP yet, like ChatGPT, for instance. They have a different standard, but they can work with the API. If you just give it that also works. But the rest basically works because MCP is kind of becoming a standard for AIs. And I say becoming because, you know, it's so early days still, right? All of this stuff is pretty new still. But it works, and it's, you know, it's very cool.
When you first started building it, was there a challenge around getting this understanding to the user? You're comfortable all day talking to AIs. Did you find that the user was comfortable suddenly talking to the AI?
Yes, because this is a much more natural use case than, for instance, using Zapier, where you still, you know, you need a bit of technical knowledge and you need to log into all your connectors and make sure that it all works. Because now users just use natural language. Like you just ask it what you want it to do, and then it just does it. So there's not really a user manual. The most difficult thing is to set it up. And that just works by you feed it a URL. And then when you ask something about Podhome, hey, list all my shows, for instance, then it will automatically pop up a window where you just log in with your normal credentials, and that's it. So it's super easy. And that actually uses OAuth, which is an authentication protocol.
And so where do you see it evolving into? I mean, have you got a roadmap of ideas and features that you want to continue to evolve this?
Yeah, definitely. So as users are using it more, it's also kind of good for our servers because they don't use the web app as much anymore. But I can see much more use cases here. For instance, recording your podcast with AI, where we can have like an interface in the AI, because you can do that as well. Have little pop-ups and custom UIs that the thing shows to you. So that can be an interface for people also to just record and automatically upload your episode, so that you don't have to, you know, don't need any third-party things like the script or other recording software. So that's one use. The possibilities are endless, really. Yeah. We're following the users, what they are doing and what they want next.
Yeah, but the old expression, if you ask your users, they'll ask for faster horses, not a car. Just be careful. Now, when we last spoke, obviously you talked about it earlier today as well. You talked about live podcasting. That's a feature that Podhome has. Yeah. And I remember you said that, well, as part of live podcasting, we have to record the live show in order to turn it into an episode. And then you said, well, we're going to also do remote recording. So have you got the remote recording service working as well now?
Not yet. Okay. We are still working on it, because it turns out that's actually a difficult problem.
Ask Claude. I'm sure it'll just knock one out for you.
Yeah, but still, you know, latency and echoes and all sorts of weird things that happen when people connect. You'd think in 2026 this is a solved problem, you know, people just talking over the internet, but you want very decent audio and perhaps also very decent video as well. Like we discussed in a previous talk that we did, where we said, you know, video, not really our thing. But now, you know, it's also easier. So we do, for instance, now also support the alternate enclosure, where actually a lot of users are using that to upload their video versions. And so supported platforms that support it, like TrueFriends, for instance, if people then go to an episode there, they can just switch to the video and back to the audio or whatever the user wants. So...
Have you been watching the Apple announcement? I'm sure you have. What are your thoughts?
I think that's very interesting, because that means that a lot more users will consume podcasts as a video, perhaps, right? So they now have the choice, like they already did in Spotify, although that's a closed system, where you can just switch to the video and back again if the podcaster chooses to upload the video there as well. But now it's kind of more of an open standard, more-ish because it is restricted to hosting partners that have access to the API to do that with Apple for now. But it's very interesting. Yeah. First of all, I find the technology very interesting, HLS, which means that you don't just download a huge video file on your local device because, the real use case is people are using this on their phones, maybe out and about over cellular. You don't want a 2 gig video going down there. That's unworkable. So HLS streams it in little tinier packages, so that works much better. And then also you could theoretically see where people are, how much they listened or watched of the episode. So yeah, we're watching it very closely. Also for audio, perhaps with HLS, we'll see what happens there. But I think it's a very promising format and also a promising move.
Yeah, HLS master playlists can contain multiple video and equally audio file formats. And I think the Apple requirement is that you do have an audio format within that list. I worry that it's not delivered through RSS. It's not delivered through the alternative enclosure. It's not in the primary enclosure. It's a bit of a walled garden that only works with Apple. So again, as you said, Spotify's a closed walled garden. YouTube's a closed walled garden. It is a bit worrying when the likes of you and I and many others within our community support open standards, and we're trying to make it a open ecosystem, that the bigger players, as usual, are going closed. We've seen this story before with internet browsers, with Microsoft being a very proprietary closed browser, and then you had Netscape as the open browser, and the yin and yang fight started. And long-term, open wins, but in the short term, closed often wins. So it's that race, I guess. With the other thing that you mentioned a little while back, I just wanted to get an update. How are you doing with the app?
The app is actually doing fine. It needs some love, as it's been a while since we've done an update there, but it works. Yeah, I use it as my daily driver, of course, because that was kind of the primary use case.
Eat your own dog food, yep.
Yeah. So, sometimes there are some unfortunalities, like with offline, for instance, in weird scenarios where the internet pops back up or something like that. But it works very well. I think we'll also add video support soon, because that is relatively easy to do. Just detect what it is and then just actually show that in a good way, of course. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we do have a lot of users actually that are using this daily. I can see that in the backend, although we do not gather any personal data, just analytics to see what's going on there. So that is very promising. What we do not have yet, and I don't think that's coming, is a V4V payment system in there with a wallet that you have so that you can send Satoshis or later on other stuff maybe to podcasters. We don't have that because that might make it very difficult with laws and regulations here in the Netherlands to actually do that.
Yeah, and look, we've had this conversation ongoing, and I think you've had a very sensible view of it, which is, yes, I'll jump on board when I think there's a market adoption. I don't think you're going to be the person who drives the market. I think you said, look, I think, there may be in the future, and I think we're beginning to see it, stablecoin now has become much more adopted by MasterCard, Visa, Stripe, PayPal. And fundamentally, if you ask me, I think that in 2026 is where we will switch. I think the micro payment model, the concept of paying small amounts of money from a fan to a creator, that works. The value for value ethos is irrelevant of the underlying mechanism of payment. But where I think the Bitcoin Lightning Network has struggled is in two parts. One is Bitcoin is seen as a value of store of, people that are becoming less and less interested in trading Bitcoin and keeping it because of the incremental value increase. It's more like gold, digital gold, than it is a transparent transaction. And I think when you start to see, everything has a lag, but I think Visa and MasterCard, if big ifs, they add the capability on your credit card to just do the payment in a stable coin and not have the massive fees that are associated with normal transactions, then you might just say, right, I go onto Podhome, I put in my MasterCard and it's got stablecoin on there as well as fiat transactions. And I say, I want to pay a small amount of money from A to B using my stablecoin, that may be where we go, where the big payment providers don't take a fee and they support a micropayment currency.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I think, probably. I'm not a big fan of the stable coins, but they will probably enable you to send fractions of your fiats, so like a tenth of a euro. Or whatever.
Which is all that we're asking for, really, to begin with.
That's all. Exactly. So we do have like a workaround. So we have support pages. So if you host your podcast, you can just click that on and boom, you have a support page. And then your listeners can go there and then they can donate one time or recurring, and that uses Stripe. So your listeners can donate with their credit card or whatever.
Yeah.
Stripe supports their Apple Pay. So that does make it easy, but it's not in the app.
So is that the funding tag that you're using there?
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah,
okay.
exactly.
Cool. And look, we do, Stripe backend, I think it's a wonderful backend. It does a lot of really cool stuff in that. Again, I think they have just they bought 6 months ago a company called Bridge, which was a stablecoin provider. So nothing to write about right now, but I think the arrow of direction may be going that way. I'm curious, why don't you like stablecoin? I mean, you're a hard man to please.
Well, I think, once we have that, it might be the replacement for our fiat ones and zeros that are in our normal bank accounts. And then we have our, it's called a digital wallet that might be the end all of everything and can control everything. So then the stablecoin providers or whoever provides that wallet can see what you spend it on, can also control what you spend it on, and maybe can control, how long stable coins last. Maybe you cannot save them for a couple of years. You have to spend them. They expire, stuff like that. So although the technology is very promising, I'm curious to see how it's going to be used, because it has a lot of potential for evil.
Yeah, no, I mean, one scenario was put out that your boss basically looks at the fact that you're buying alcohol on the Sunday, but you need to be on a top presentation on the Monday. So you go to pay for the alcohol and you can't buy it because your boss has blocked it. I mean, these are very dystopian thoughts, but, Black Mirror, it may well happen. Moving forward, last questions then, really. With live, I'm equally curious with live. What is the adoption? Because live, as in the lit tag, has not really set fire. I mean, you're one of the only hosts, I think, that really provides the end-to-end capability, provide the server and the function. RSS.com went about 80% of the way down the road. They provided all the lit tag functionality, but they didn't actually provide a server. And we haven't really seen any of the other big hosts do it. So what is the uptake and what are the downsides for you in terms of, is it a extremely expensive model, or is it, an application that, it was quick to do and it's easy to implement?
Yeah. So like you said, we support it and provide everything that you need. So you just click it, you say, I want to use the Podhome server, and it just works. You can also use your own server if you have one, but we want to make this type of stuff, which is pretty advanced, very easy. And then you just go do it. The hardest part is to set up a connection to the server from your local machine. And we explain that with BUT, for instance, which is an application that you can install.
Broadcast using this thing.
Yes.
That's what it stands for. I don't know if
That's what it stands for.
Yeah.
And that works well. Adoption amongst our users is pretty high. We have all sorts of people going live. There's one show that goes live 6 days a week, for instance, for 3 hours long, like a real radio show. There's others as well that do that almost daily, weekly, definitely. Yeah, we have lots of live going on, which is good. And you asked, is that complicated, expensive to run for us? Not really. So we have these IceCast servers that act as the live server. We just run a couple of those, load balanced, and making sure that if one fails, you still have something that runs. And they're pretty cheap, actually, to run. They don't need a lot of resources to run and then to support lots of users checking in. So no, not really. It all fits within our $15.99 a month model.
Yeah. Nice. I mean, I had a radio station. We did live broadcasting over the web as well as DAB. And yeah, we used BUT from our studio. And then, Yeah, we're talking 6 years ago, 7 years ago, COVID timeframe, whatever that may be. Yeah. And, once you work out how to do it, it's pretty simple. Click this, do that, go live, right? And it's the configuration of the Icecast server that just takes a little bit of time. I've always wondered, though, why can't we integrate all of that but capability within, when you go to StreamYard, I don't think about but. I don't have that issue. I have a button and I say I want LinkedIn and I want Twitter and I want this. And I click a button and it says go live and it works. So how can we as a podcast industry make live broadcasting as simple as the way that StreamYard did?
We can. We just need to do it. So Earlier we were talking about a live or a recording capability that we're working on. It should just be in there as well. That can just connect to the Icecast server and do that. Obviously, it's difficult to do it well and with good audio quality and make sure that it works even if your internet is not super fast and all those types of restrictions. But that's kind of the thing we are also working towards, because like you said, that's the biggest hurdle, because not everything is contained within our platform. You do need to set up a little application on your own device and have a little configuration there. And that's often the most questions that we get.
Yeah. No, I just think, again, I haven't gone down the road yet, but we are looking as true fans, I should say we, when I talk about Pod News as well. I'm talking about we as in CEO of True Fans. We are looking at live. And yeah, these are the challenges. I think complexity is fail simplicity. And I think if you can hide the complexity, you have the opportunity to bring on what I'd call normies, because if you're having to get someone to set up bus and talk about ports and talk about Icecast URLs, I think, 90% of people are lost. Yeah. Maybe not 90%, maybe that's too high, but I think, again, if we can make it as simple as possible, maybe we'll get a wider adoption. Now, 2026, what's it looking like for Podhome? What's the other plans that you've got in mind?
So many things that we want to do. Always small improvements, make things faster, cheaper to run. That's the type of thing that's always going on. So perhaps more automation use cases. We already heard, for instance, Zapier now does a couple of things, but we also want to make that do everything that you kind of can do in the app. And then also create connectors for make.com, which is kind of also like Zapier, but just a slightly different format. We'll probably expand the API and also the MCP capabilities a bit more based on feedback also and what we see happening there. And we'll continue work on our recording feature so that we just want everything to be in the platform, that you just have a button and boom, you have a podcast. That's kind of the dream. And we're working towards that.
Do you see AI chatbot type interfaces in the app side of the equation? You're talking about using it on the hosting side of the equation. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on using it on the app side?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really see the use case yet. So for instance, what we do in Podhome, we have Podhome AI, for instance, and that does transcripts, chapters, description, identifies people, all that type of stuff for you. It would be very cool if something like that would be on your device in your podcast player app, like the Podhome player app or on the True Fans app, for instance. And you just say, this episode does not have chapters. It would be cool if it did have chapters. Boom, let's just press it. And now I have chapters and I can see what it's actually about. That would be a cool use case. But also, I don't really want to mess with content that chose not to have chapters, because then you're augmenting things that you don't really have the permissions to. So that's a bit of a slippery slope. But something like that. So the summary episodes, for instance, if I have a Lex Friedman episode of 8 hours, I don't want to listen to the whole thing. Just give me 20 minutes of it. Just pick the best things of that. Something like that would be very cool. But it would have to be on device, I think, because if you have to do an API call to OpenAI or Claude or something, it's going to be very expensive. And then you have to charge users or minimize the experience. I don't like that. Yeah. But I think that is coming, like smaller models that will run locally on device, on your iPhone, for instance, maybe later on, that can be contained within an app. So there are use cases, definitely. But by then, perhaps maybe even Apple has an AI assistant that might just be able to do that for you right there in the OS.
Yeah, I think Apple may well go down that, although I don't think it'll be called Siri. You never know, Siri might find a brain.
Gemini, right?
Yeah, licensed by Apple one more time. Yeah. No, I think there are companies that have been doing some interesting work in this space. Snipd out of Switzerland's done some really clever work with Kevin. James and I were talking about a company called PodShrink, which was a good example of shrinking down a large podcast episode down into 1 minute, 2 minutes, and using like Notebook LM type functionality. I do think there are interfaces like Spotify have DJX. I find, it's very limited, but I think it's an interesting arrow of direction where, I'm in the car, I'm hands free, and I'm getting input and I'm giving input back, so, play me X, go to that playlist, whatever. I do think there are AI interfaces to apps that will come, and I think it'll be interesting. Because again, look, if you put your phone in your pocket and you've got your AirPods on, can I just use an AI interface, right? Find me that episode from Barry where he mentioned X, whatever, right? Boom, there it is. There's a transcript, there's a section, play it back to me, right? I think there are ways that we can use a voice interface with AI in a voice medium, which is what podcasting is.
Yeah, but I think the OSs will have that at some point. This was supposed to be Siri 10 years ago already, right? Never worked. But at some point it will work.
Yeah. Barry, thank you so much. Congratulations on all your AI work. It sounds very exciting. Where can people go and find out more about Podhome?
It's very simple. You just go to podhome.fm and you can see everything there. And you can also start a 30-day free trial right there.
Surely you've got to rename it to podhome.ai now.
Nah. No.
Barry, will we see you in London this year at the London Podcast Show?
This year, no. Oh, I thought it was already. It was already. No. This year, no. Maybe next year.
I'm not going to be able to have a beer with you. What can I say? Barry, take care, my friend. Speak to you soon.
Thank you.
Barry from Podhome. And if the idea of AI helping you with your podcast sounds an exciting thing, then you should take a look at Buzzsprout, our sponsor. They have a thing called Co-Host. Co-Host is very clever. It does automated transcripts for you. It will produce for you automated show notes and all of that sort of thing. It will produce a title if you can't think of a good title for that. It'll even give you clips and things like that as well. Buzzsprout.com to learn more.
James, if a podcast is published and no one hears it, does it count?
Now, this is about a story that we covered earlier on in the week about competition in podcasting. I've heard these numbers before, but it's always nice to see updated numbers. So the total number of new podcasts, or rather the total number of new podcast feeds, because let's be careful on what we're talking about, last year, 207,000. So if you're there thinking, there's a lot of competition in podcasting, well, 207,000 is quite a lot of new shows. But then go to the bookstore, because just in the US, new figures say that there were more than 4 million new books published last year. More than 4 million. So if we think that we've got too much competition and it's all very, very difficult with podcasting, my goodness, you should be selling a book. But I thought that was a fascinating stat from the ever-intelligent Tom Webster, and worthwhile sharing.
I wonder how many of those books are actually read, James.
Well, I would totally agree. I mean, how many of the books that I've bought are entirely read as well is certainly a question. Right, let's go around the world. Australia is doing some work on the future of measurement, which sounds very exciting. That's the IAB in Australia doing that sort of thing. Weird stuff going on with CNN. They are making some of their shows look like podcasts. They're putting great big microphones in shot. They're sort of kind of recording. I mean, Jake Tapper's show appeared to come from his office, and there was a cheap sofa in there, and there were things on the wall and everything else. It's all a bit weird. So I'm not really sure what CNN is playing at. But there again, I mean, for CNN, they can just play around at the moment because who knows what their new owner is going to be playing around with.
Well,
anyway.
I was going to say, I mean, I thought Larry Ellison was going to make cuts when he got the company, not before he got the company.
Yes, exactly. I mean, none of that, none of the whole thing. I mean, it's all very sort of, let's make this look really cool, and we'll fill our desks full of junk, and put these massive, great big microphones there. And really, is that really what you want to do? But I suppose that there is a visual language around podcasting, and what that's potentially saying is that lots of people love podcasts, and so therefore CNN wants to look as if it's like a big podcast. Very weird, very strange. So
I think it's, if you can't beat them, join them. Maybe that's what it is.
Yes,
but
maybe
what was
maybe
even funnier though, James, was Fox News hosts were all laughing about it, and then I think in a couple of weeks' time, if they have to do it as well, I think they won't be laughing anymore. I don't know. It's very weird.
No, it is very strange.
Now, zipping over to Africa, James, what's going on over there?
Yeah, there's a radio broadcasters convention happening in Joburg at the venue in Green Park. And yes, lots of broadcasters, content creators, but talking about podcasting. Talking about unlocking the podcasting economy, strategies for production, distribution, and monetization. There's a lot going on in South Africa right now in terms of podcasting, an awful lot going on in South Africa. And actually here in Riga in Latvia, where I've been talking with a lot of different people from radio around the world, I ended up bumping into somebody else from South Africa, talking about what the future of podcasting is down there. His name is Francois Retief, and he sounds nothing like that, but he's working for iono.fm, and he was saying just how much podcasting has changed quite recently in South Africa. So probably we should get him on at some point. But yeah, really, really interesting. Really interesting. People and jobs, moving people are doing things. So John Turnus. Who's John Turnus, Sam?
Well, it's a name that you shouldn't get to know, I believe. The bookies, it seems to be
the poly
hot
market,
favourite.
yes.
Yeah, hot favourite. Hasn't been mentioned by Trump this week, though. But the hot favourite for the Apple CEO job, that's what. He's the Senior Vice President for Hardware and Engineering. Wow. I mean, they are saying that they will only promote from within. So yeah, no, and it makes perfect sense to promote from within for Apple. I think interesting to see hardware, which is the bit of Apple which is very successful, essentially running the whole thing. The software and the software design is, quite a lot of people are saying less than nice things about that. So here's hoping that if John ends up... Liquid glass,
yes, cool. Liquid glass. And all these curved corners. So hopefully we will...
Cutting corners, I think.
learn more about that. The BBC is to get a new Director General. In case you don't know what a Director General is, I don't blame you. It's the CEO, basically. Matt Britton is tipped to get the job. Britton for the BBC. I see what they've done there. He was head of Google for Europe, the Middle East and Africa for more than 10 years. So he has no media background. Hopefully he will get a deputy. If he's clever, he'll get a deputy with that media background, because he will definitely need that. But what he does have a good background is being part of a very large organisation, being able to steer change within that, and being able to get people to at least understand what their mission is. So that should be interesting to see. Matt Britton, head of the BBC. Who's head of Crosswires, the podcast festival in in Sheffield in the UK? Nobody knows because they have been advertising that. A managing director job going for Crosswires in Sheffield. That should be very exciting.
Downside, you have to live in Sheffield.
No, I don't believe that that's the case, actually.
Wow, I bet you do.
I'm sure. It's a nice place, Sheffield. It's a nice place.
Really?
I used to work there. Yeah, it's a nice place.
I haven't been north of Watford for years.
So that's good. And changes at Global Studios as well. Craig Hunter is joining Global Studios as managing director. Now, he comes from STV, I believe.
Yes.
So it's an interesting...
Spoke to the wife about him.
Yeah. Oh, right. Yes. Well, it's an interesting move for Global to have a big name managing director of that particular company. Yes. That should be a good thing to watch. So he ends up, it says here, will work closely with Global's group CEO, Simon Pitts, and Chief Broadcast and Content Officer, James Rea. James is a very bright chap. So, it's going to be interesting. A proper executive in terms of that. And in awards news, there's a new podcast awards. Brilliant. Hooray. This one's called the MPN Awards. It's run by the Marketing Podcast Network. They're open to
Have you made space on your shelf? Because, obviously, there's new awards.
Any podcast in the marketing podcast world. I did take a cursory look through their website to try and understand what a marketing podcast was, and I don't really know. There we are. But anyway, if you are running a marketing podcast, maybe a marketing podcast is one that if you don't know what a marketing podcast is, then you're not in the target market. But however it works, nominations close at the end of April, and the Signal Awards are now officially open for entries as well.
The tech stuff on the Pod News Weekly Review.
Yes, it's the stuff you'll find every Monday in the Pod News newsletter. Here's where Sam talks technology.
Well, we talked about the iOS 26.4, which is live, so that's great.
Now, Sam, have you, for true fans, did you get $100 million in a funding round last year and just not tell anybody about it?
Yes, completely, 100%. I'm not Pinocchio. No, we didn't, sadly, not that much. No, not that much, but it looks like Blue Sky have. Yes.
Looks like Blue Sky have, which is weird. What a weird thing to do. An entire company which is based on trust, and they've hidden the fact that they've been sitting on $100 million. And it's Bain as well, which is Bain is one of those interesting venture capital companies that is leading the charge for enshittification. If you ask me, you look at what they invest in, and you look at what they do to those companies. It's not a good thing. Interestingly, Bain is the current owners of the Virgin Australia airline, which I've not been on for a long, long time. So. You don't want to shitificate those. They come down fast then. So there's a new interim CEO at Blue Sky. Jay Gruber, no longer CEO. Perhaps that's got something to do with this. Who knows? Yes. So interesting times for Blue Sky. Interesting times for Mastodon as well. I did see some figures recently which said that Mastodon had loads and loads and loads of users, but most of those users have now gone away. So Mastodon is much, much smaller than it used to be. So I don't know the truth to some of that, but you can probably understand that the excitement of Mastodon for many people has gone away. What are No Mono doing?
The Mono, the Swedish company with a production in a box. They've added new Stellar mics. They've also increased their video production as well. So they're very excited that they now support both audio and video and have some new mics that work with iPhones.
Yeah, I think what they're doing, if I've read the press release correctly, I think what you do is you record the audio with your Mono Magic Box. You record the video with whatever it is that you want to record the video with, and then magically, through the power of AI, it syncs the audio that you've recorded on one device with the video that you've recorded on a different device. I think that's what it's doing.
Okay.
Which sounds very interesting.
Sure
it does sound like a bit of a one-trick pony, but it does sound interesting, so yeah.
They'll be at the London Podcast Show. We'll go and have a look.
They will indeed. British Airways, how exciting. You can now listen to Audible podcasts on British Airways. More than 250 hours of podcasts and audiobooks will be available for free. If you travel long haul with BA, if you travel short haul, then tough. You're not even getting a telly in front of you. But if you travel long haul, then you get
chapter
access.
1, would you, on the short haul?
You get access.
Yeah, pointless. What happened in chapter 4? I don't know. We'll come back.
Don't know. We'll come back to that. Cathay Pacific, who I was on last week, don't have any podcasts in their system at all, which I thought was interesting. Not a single podcast. It's differences for horses and courses there. I was trying to remember whether Finnair had any. I'm not even sure that Finnair had any as well. So, anyway, if you want to go back, you'll find an earlier Pod News Weekly review where we interview the people from one of these companies that actually does all of the hard work with getting podcasts into in-flight entertainment. It's a company called Sparfax, and you can go back and find that in this very feed.
Quick note, Amazon celebrated 20 years of Amazon S3 and AWS. How old does that make me feel? Right.
Yes, 20 years of Amazon S3 and they still haven't made it easy to use.
Or cheap. And finally, I only mention this, the OnlyFans CEO has passed away at the age of 43. I mention it because several people in my village still think that I'm the CEO of OnlyFans because they come up to me, oh, I've heard you're the CEO of OnlyFans. No, nothing to do with it.
Can you give me a discount, Sam?
Yeah, exactly.
Boostergram, super comments, zaps, fan mail, super chats, and email. Our favorite time of the week, it's the Pod News Weekly Review inbox.
So many different ways to get in touch with us. Fan mail by using the link in our show notes, boosts, or email. We share any money that we make as well between us. Thank you to Bruce, the ugly quacking duck, who has sent 2 rows of duck. Who sent a row of ducks twice? Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. 4,444 sats. Excellent. He says, enjoyed the episode. Our governor here has passed a bill where taxes still come out of our tips. Boo.
Oh.
Ah, well, there you go. That's the downside of a federated system. So there's a thing. Ralph E. Owens Jr. Now, Ralph ended up joining us as a power supporter last week, which was excellent. And I said, I would love to know more about Ralph. I really should get in touch. Promptly forgot because I've been busy. So thank heavens that he has got in touch with us through fan mail, which is another thing that our sponsor Buzzsprout offers. And it says here, hello guys, this is Ralph E. Owens Jr. calling in from Houston, Texas. Just want to take some time. Oh, I was right, Houston, Texas. Just wanted to take some time to show my appreciation for all the value that you give to the podcasting community. I was so surprised to hear my name called on the Pod News Weekly Review. My wife really got a kick out of it. Thank you so much for the shout out.
Not until she found out he was paying. And then she was like, what?
What? You're paying for what now? Why are you doing that? It's free. And he says, again, I've been podcasting since 2024, so roughly 2 years. Immediately once I got into podcasting, I started looking for resources to follow. Stephen Robles suggested that I follow you guys. Thank you, Stephen. And it's been an absolute delight listening to you daily and weekly. My name is Ralph E, as in Edward Owens Jr. I thought it was E for excellent, Ralph. And the name of my podcast, it's called the Leadership Sovereignty Podcast, where we help everyday working individuals to use leadership principles in order to advance and promote their careers. You could do some of that, Sam. So if there's anything I can do, I've got no idea why I say that. So if there's anything I can ever do to support you guys, please do not hesitate to let me know. Thank you so much. Cheers. Thank you so much, Ralph. That's very kind.
That's something my mother would have said to me.
Have you thought of any leadership principles?
I have to say, no, I've got a story. Right. So I started off having a part-time DJ job, and my dad said it wasn't a sensible career, so I ended up being an army officer. My mother was super proud because, being a typical Indian mother, she could boast and tell everyone, my son's in the army. He's
my son's a part-time DJ. Of course, when
I left the army, no, it didn't work. That didn't work. Right. So I left the army and I came out and worked in Microsoft. So that was fine for a while and all those things. And then when I started getting into entrepreneurship, A, she couldn't say the word, B, she didn't know how to tell her friends, so she just didn't tell them anything of what I was up to anymore. So yes, I was an entrepreneur. I don't know what that means, son. What do you do? And I have no idea what I told her.
Oh, well. We've got some messages from true fans as well, haven't we?
We have indeed.
Not only fans, I should again point out.
Yes,
but true
I
fans.
haven't opened that account. Right, Seth Goldstein said, congrats to True Fans FM and Sam. Yes, that's to do with our video hosting launching last week. So thank you very much, Seth. And
yes, and he also says a terabyte is quite a bit.
Yes.
No, it's more than a bit. It's
a byte even.
It's a terabyte.
It's a byte, yes. And then, yes, I did slip up by saying it was a download. Yes, the download, in my humble opinion, is dead. It's a stream now.
Yes. And Silas drops us a message saying, lads, any plans for Podcast Show London? Are you going to do Drinks Night again? For me to awkwardly sit at silently, or another attempt at PodCamp? Well, probably not PodCamp, but Podcast Show London drinks, there are discussions ongoing, aren't there, Sam?
There are, yes. I'll be sliding into people's DMs later in the month, as they say.
Oh, great.
Yes. Yes. Yes, there are plans.
Yes, excellent. Yes, no, it should be fun. There should be yes, it might be the biggest event that we have done, which isn't difficult because all of the other events are quite small, or it might not. Yeah. It just depends as to whether. Yes, it depends as to whether. Yes. And Neil Velio dropped us a message. So Podtential bought the IP from Voxelize? No, I don't think so. This is a whole different thing. Wade Kingsley from Podtential is actually here as well. But yes, no, it's not any IP from anybody else. So there we go. Anyway, Neil, thank you for that. Thank you also to the excellent 24 supporters who have gone to weekly.podnews.net, and they're giving us real money, which is very kind. Ralph Eastep Jr., for example, John Spurlock, I've heard of him, Ms. Eileen Smith, David Marsell, Rachel Corbett, and Dave Jackson, to name but some. We super appreciate that. That actually really helps us with the drinks and things like that. So thank you so much for doing that. So what's been happening for you this week, Sam? You've been doing video streaming now. Has it all fallen apart, or is it all working beautifully?
No, it's fallen apart. No, I'm joking. No, it's working beautifully. It's one of those things that, again, we're onboarding the first few, testing, but it's looking good so far. We've added a watch time metric alongside our listen time metrics. So yes, because we stream the MP4, we don't download. It means that we can measure how long you've watched as well. And what's cool is if you switch, a bit like the Apple switching, if you switch between watching the video and then go to the audio, we then automatically start calculating your listen time. So
right, yeah.
You'll get what the listen time is for the audio section, and you'll get the watch time for the video section.
Very nice. Are you going to be at some point being one of these Apple podcast partners and doing all of that stuff?
Yeah, if you can't beat them. Yeah, we are. We've been given kindly, thank you to Apple, access to their secret API key, and we are now testing the final parts, so I think we'll get their approval. But yes, HLS delivery through the API. We also do HLS delivery, which is quite nice because we were doing it before the Apple announcement, so it hasn't required as much work as some other hosts possibly. So we support it in the alternative enclosure, but also through this API key as well.
Very nice too.
And the last one, James, you'll be very happy to know, we refactored all of the old API payments, and we are now doing comments as well. So next week, hopefully, you'll start to see comments appearing in your Runway app, as well as, have you updated the
Yes. Well, that all sounds exciting, doesn't it? Yes. Yes, I'm not using a node of my own now, so everything is going into the Strike app, and so yes, if you're supporting that, then that's excellent news. Let's wait and see what we get.
Indeed, yes,
from the system. Yes,
holds his breath, counts to 100, and hopes.
Yes, no, indeed.
James, so what's been happening for you?
Well, so I have been on a number of long flights, and I'm currently in Riga in Latvia. The first time I've ever been to Latvia. I had a day off a couple of days ago, and one of the places that I walked to, it's got a very small town centre. It's got a nice, old town in the middle of it. During Soviet times, Riga was going to be the financial capital of the Soviet Union. So quite a lot of the buildings here are quite grand, and quite a lot of the roads are quite wide and all of that, which is, so it's a fascinating place to wander around. But anyway, I just sort of had a wander around and walked to the Russian embassy. And you might be thinking, James, why did you walk to the Russian embassy? Because what happened here when Russia invaded Ukraine is that the first things that the Latvians did, given that we've got a border to Russia right here, the first things that the Latvians did is that they changed the name of the road outside outside of the Russian embassy to be called Independent Ukraine Road, basically. So the address of the Russian embassy is the Russian Embassy, Independent Ukraine Road, Riga, which I just think is brilliant. And they've also put a massive, great big portrait of Putin, but looking like a death mask, staring at the embassy from the building on the other side of the street, which happens to be a state museum. So yeah, I mean, they're not messing around, the Latvians, I'll tell you. But it's been really nice. It's been a fun place to be. I caught up with a number of Latvian podcasters, both at the conference, but also just in the pub and all of that. So yeah, that was really good. I was very jet lagged, but that was great fun. So I've really enjoyed it.
I'm glad you are jet lagged at the end of that sentence.
Yes. Oh yes. But no, it's been a fun time. So later on today, I'm heading all the way back again. The delay in publishing the Pod News Weekly Review last week was that my hard drive had filled up on my MacBook. Unbeknown to me. And so what the Mac does is it goes, it doesn't look as if you've got an awful lot of space. I will just put all of this stuff in the cloud. And then, you don't really notice that it's doing that. It just takes slightly longer to open a file because it has to go and grab it from the cloud. Except you do notice that when you're on a plane and the internet is very, very slow, and you realize that all of the audio from last week's show was in the cloud. So that was annoying. It meant that I couldn't edit it at the time that I had thought that I was going to edit it. So anyway, I've made some space now. So that is all good. Anyway, that's it for this week. All of our podcast stories taken from the Pod News Daily newsletter at podnews.net.
You can support this show by streaming sats. You can give us feedback using the Buzzsprout fan mail link in our show notes, and you can send us a boost or become a power supporter, even better, like the 23 power supporters at weekly.podnews.net.
Our music's from TM Studios. Our voiceover is Sheila D. Our audio is recorded using Clean Feed, and we edit with Hindenburg. And we're hosted and sponsored by Buzzsprout. Start podcasting. Keep podcasting.
Get updated every day. Subscribe to our newsletter at podnews.net. Tell your friends and grow the show. And support us. The Pod News Weekly Review will return next week. Keep listening.